Welcome to the Research Culture Uncovered podcast, where in every episode we explore what is research culture and what should it be. You'll hear thoughts and opinions from a range of contributors to help you change research culture into what you want it to be.
Welcome. My name is Jed Hall and I'm the Researcher Development Team Leader at the University of Leeds. My researcher development specialism is research impact, and that covers the development of individuals, both researchers and research impact professionals, and organisational development aspects of research impact. So all of the episodes I contribute to the Research Culture Uncovered podcast, really focusing on that space, and they're all available via a playlist, which is in the show notes. Now, today is the second of a new series of interviews that I've kind of given the name Research Impact Heroes. And as I mentioned in the first interview in this series with Professor Mark Reed, the idea has three roots. The first is that I've been using the term for years to describe lots of different people whose work in research impact has really helped me and inspired me in my work at Leeds. The second route is that people across the world who work in this space nearly always talk about how wonderful a community it is, with lots of collaborations and interconnections across that social network. And the final route is that this podcast has given me the opportunity to just be cheeky and reach out to those people and invite them for a chat about research impact and its role in changing research culture. Now, I usually get so much joy from those conversations that you can hardly call it work, and I'm totally expecting that today, so no pressure. But let's do the proper bio bit. So today, I'm really delighted to be joined by Dr. Julie Bayley. Julie is currently Director of Research Impact and Culture and Associate Professor at Northeastern University in London. And before joining Northeastern nearly a year ago, she was Director of Research Impact Development at the University of Lincoln for over 6 years, where she set up the Lincoln Impact Literacy Institute. Prior to that, she worked at Coventry University, where she was seconded from a research role into an impact role in the run-up to the first Research Excellence Framework, or REF, that included research impact in the UK. That's when I first met Julie. So she presented at one of the very first research impact focused conferences in the UK on a tracking tool, an impact tracking tool that she and colleagues had developed. Now, her research interests more generally are in the applied health psychology field, but she's also published extensively on research impact, including her fantastic book, and this is me doing the plug, Creating Meaningful Impact, the essential guide to developing an impact literate mindset. If you love this interview and you've not read the book, then you are going to love it. Okay. Now, hopefully this is where the dry sounding stuff ends and we can get into the kind of what I want these interviews to be, which is to get to know the people behind the work. And it's also, Julie is not dry at all. In fact, if you were to describe, think of the stereotype of an academic, she probably doesn't fit any of those kind of, boring, only talking about her work or anything like that. So those are really, really important to think about. And actually, if you've already read Julie's book, I'll give you a second to hit pause and create yourself a list of the brilliant anecdotes that she uses. So memorable words, phrases, and metaphors. So go on, hit pause and create that list. Now, I've got my list, and because I've got that list, I always love to play Bayley Impact Bingo. So when you tick off all the items on your list, make a note of how long it was into the interview before she managed to do everything that you'd thought of. And we'll see who gets there first in all the comments. So pens at the ready, and let's welcome Julie Bayley to the Research Culture Uncovered podcast. Hi, Julie.
Oh, thank you, Jed. That was lovely. How the devil are you?
I'm really well, thank you, and it's brilliant to be having a good natter with you today. As I said in the intro, getting quality time with people I really respect is just a joy. So yeah,
well, it's lovely to do it, and I'm now deciding whether kind of support impact bingo or whether I resist it and just don't say the things. But I suspect they might just come out. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I think when we get into it and you get into your flow, you'll probably not be able to resist just the
I suspect that's true.
yeah. I'm not going to say any. I'm not going to prod you and kind of like as everybody is playing Bayley Impact Bingo right in the moment, all the
Excellent.
listeners, I'm not going to try and make a push for what's on my bingo card.
Okay.
Okay. So, Julie, I mentioned in the intro that you had a secondment at Coventry University to an impact related role in the run up to REF in 2014. But can you tell us more about your route into research impact? What led you to take on that secondment? And what is it that keeps you motivated to be involved nationally and internationally in this area?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the tracker, and I think that the story starts a fair while before that. In that, so I after a very misjudged plan to be a professional double bassist, moved into did my undergrad in psychology, sociology, did a master's in health psych, and then got a research assistant job as an intervention developer, behavioral scientist, health psychology, primarily sexual health, but think public health, all sorts of things in that arena. And one of the things that just saddened me continuously is that we're doing all these interventions, stuff wasn't changing. You could still see, pregnant teenagers unsupported, and you could still see, people not getting the NHS care they needed. So there's this kind of constant conflict, and it kind of came to the head of it. I just thought, what is the point of a lot of stuff we're doing? It's incredibly valuable, it's incredibly important, but there's this gulf. And then I went on, I think my second maternity, came back, and there was this JISC funded impact project where I was kind of shepherded in as a kind of, well, you like this stuff. And it turns out I did. So I was the academic partner on that. We developed an impact capture system. And when we tried to roll it out, it just didn't quite work. And it became really clear that the reason it didn't work is because people just hadn't had chance to understand what impact was before being tasked with putting it into a system. And that really was the trigger point to become seconded as the impact person. And then since then, I've run a hybrid role as both academic and impact person. And as you mentioned in the introduction, that then led to the Lincoln role and now at North East and London. So it's been the thing that got me into it was this wish that the stuff we did would genuinely make a difference for someone. The experience that there was a gap between what we were doing and that difference. And then, and I'm very aware of this, the really lucky position to be able to hold a hybrid post across all of that. And then the opportunities that brings, having a foot in each of those camps.
Yeah, that hybrid road. How does that feel, kind of personally? I mean, what's we often talk about identities and things like that. What would you describe yourself as? I mean, hybrid always feels a bit dry. So go on, go. Let's.
I mean, I've defaulted to impact nerd because it's about the only thing that seems to make sense. But it's an odd one. It is an absolute privilege. I'm under no illusions. A hell of a lot of people do not get the opportunity to have a foot in both camps. And for me as a patient rep as well. So, part of that longer story there is having had poor health, vascular health. So I do a lot of work as a patient rep, which means I have this kind of triangle of being a researcher, research manager, impact person, and patient. And it is an incredibly privileged position. I know that, but you are a square peg in a round hole.
mm,
Academia does not typically recognize more scenic routes, more portfolio things. I don't mean it's completely excluded, but there is a real challenge if you don't look like the template for progression, if you don't look
mm,
like the template. So, and I think a number of us have that, irrespective of what that combination is. So I feel lucky. I will usually identify, I say, as an impact nerd because it is just the only term that seems to fit all of those things. And but there is always a tension of maintaining CPD and all of those things, and just finding a space that where you can fit in
mm.
that kind of slightly complex academic world.
Yeah, it's interesting. I spoke to Wade Kelly, you know well,
Hmm.
as also another. So look out for that. I'll put the link in the show notes to that interview. But I was talking to him about his kind of meanderings across the boundary between the academic side and full academic contract and full professional staff contract, and that was an interesting story. So it's for you, you're not meandering, you're always on the boundary.
Yeah, and I think I've over the years rationalized the the opportunity that brings to look from different vantage points.
Mm,
And whenever I'm working with anyone who has a similar thing, who feels the pressure from each side, I try and find that point you say, but you have a unique viewpoint because you're at this intersect. So yeah, so I think lucky is the right word for how I feel, but not suggesting it's all kind of shiny and, you
mm.
know, confetti and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I guess kind of final question on this before we move on to kind of the formal questions. But what's the kind of the irritant? What's the thing that kind of scratches at you and you kind of sometimes you might eventually go, that hurts.
Oh, we've been there many a time. And there's a kind of slight shout out for the STI ENID conference that's coming up in forgotten, October, September, I forget. I'm bad at that. I've got a paper called Peacock's Gonna Peacock on kind of the things that actually irritate us, like people peacocking at meetings. So
Right.
I'm very, very much in the irritate. You didn't think Peacock was going to be on the bingo list, did you? It's
I was just about to
new
say
for
that.
25.
Just written it on, cross it
Yeah,
off.
yeah,
Now
no,
you
you
said
to add that on.
it.
So you, I mean, part of your earlier question was, why am I in it? Why do I
Mm,
stay in it? And it is the fact that we as a sector have the most incredible opportunity to make a difference. No question, we have that. So the question for me then is, what can I do? And the thing I've worked out I can do is kind of be facilitatory, intermediary, supportive. I don't know quite what the words are for that, but that kind of being in the space of helping people to do that so that we can make that
mm,
difference. And that's the thing that keeps me in it all the time. The irritants are the things that get in the way of that very
mm,
simple premise. It's the oversimplistic understanding various parts of the sector about what impact is, which means unrealistic expectations come down on people, that
mm,
people are tasked with doing this thing called impact without actually anyone really being clear what that is. We wouldn't do that with research.
mm.
We wouldn't put research as the responsibility of one person, and the only thing you're looking at is 4-starness. The unit of currency becomes 4 star. So what irritates me is that impact is still treated in pockets, not everywhere, as this add-on. So we're still fighting it. And you mentioned bingo, and I am a broken record. I am fully aware of that. And the reason I'm a broken record is because that message still needs to be said. I'm still meeting people every week when I go kind of round and about that haven't had chance to learn this stuff.
Mm,
That's the irritant for me. The
mm.
kind of the illusion that the sector is mature in impact, and yes, it is, but that doesn't mean everybody has been given equal chance to learn it. So that's what keeps me in it.
Yeah, brilliant. So yeah, I think I've been connected to you on LinkedIn probably for, I don't know,
Ever.
12, 13 years. Yeah, forever, probably. And I've lost track of the number of times you've mentioned that you're delivering a workshop, talking at a conference, doing a presentation of some sort, um, about impact to loads of different people. I kind of try and count the number of people I might have interacted with and go, that's probably a 1% fraction of of who Julie's interacted with over the years. So can you think back through all those presentations and events and kind of, are there any questions that you've kind of gone, damn, that was really hard. That was a hard one to answer. And, I'm just wondering, you've recently been up to Leeds to the International Medieval Congress. So I just wondered whether the medievalists came up with something really new for you.
I did come up to that. That was absolutely fascinating. I was invited to be part of they'd got a new stream, medieval studies in action. So the impact leads there had kind of convened this thing, and there's a number of us. And I was there as the kind of impact person, where there obviously other people at medievalists. What a lovely bunch of people is the first thing to say. I never thought I'd meet a tier 2 monk. That was amazing. I bought a bracelet, did not buy the penis tapestry. I'm not sure if penis was on your bingo, but there you go. Um, um, but what that reminded me of was every time I do a talk, there is a different need in the room. And I don't know how many I've done. It's certainly into the hundreds, no doubt whatsoever. And I think I worked out, I've worked on, we're getting on to about 700 case studies now. So,
Mm,
we're in the territory of having seen these things. The most common practical question I get every single time is about evidence and measurement.
mm,
It is the thing, certainly in the UK, that people are most concerned about. How do I measure it? How do I measure it fairly? All of those kind of things. That I don't think that's a hard question to answer, but it is a very, very common question.
Mm.
The hardest question I'll summarize as what counts. Um, and the reason it's hard is because the answer is it depends who's asking.
Mm.
So if it's, and one of the ones I talk about all the time is, if a single dementia patient feels safer, that's impact. I do not give a monkeys what star rating that is. That's impact win. So for that dementia patient, that's impact. Fact. Is it enough for ref? No. And so, and the extra layer on top of that is often in an institution, especially at the minute with the dire straits many institutions are in. And it's worth saying, it's quite common for me to be brought in because they've lost so many staff. They essentially are supplementing it with outsourcing to get someone like me in, and many, many other people do it, of course. There are these kind of political things like, what should my institution be doing to support me? And it's kind of like, well, I can give you a generic answer, but I can't answer for your institution because I don't know the politics, the resources, or anything else. So I do find I have to balance quite a fine line on answering in an impact health way without suggesting that there is something amiss, wrong, because that's, oh, I have no idea what this is doing, and it'd be wrong for me to comment. So I think the what's hard is more the questions of, what counts, what's reasonable, what's fair, how much pressure should they feel they should be under, etc. That's the hardest.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that chimes so much with my experiences internally leads. Quite regularly I go out and ask the community, what do you want? And I know what will be the top of the top, which will be evaluation. No matter where I put it in the randomization, if I've sent it out as a poll or anything like that, it'll be evaluation. And kind of go, well, we did do a lot on evaluation last year,
Yeah.
and you kind of go, yes, but I'd love some more. And I think that boils down to almost the feeling of insecurity, doesn't it? It
Yeah.
it's actually the kind of nub of most people's jobs, and could be kind of, I'm not saying that they'll be sacked or but it essentially is the failure tipping point. Is it
It
success? Is
is.
it failure?
It's the equivalent of the output essentially,
Mm,
because and it's interesting you mentioned the medieval thing. What was so interesting there was the rich conversation about engagement, the
mm,
amount of engagement, and kind of the impact part was uh, not missing at all, but I think there was such a value seen in engagement that it kind of tipped a little bit there. So I didn't see that conversation anywhere near as much in that arena for that reason. Um, but ultimately, if you can't prove it, you can't claim it. So, and it's like if you haven't published it, it didn't exist. It's the same logic. So of course people are worried about it. And the referrals are quite by necessity. Um, you're kind of like, whatever you think is the right evidence, put that in, rather than you must have X, Y, and Z. But that leaves it to the judgment. And as soon as it comes down to judgment, and within a context where our universities are in survival mode, it makes that the biggest piece of the puzzle for people to want to get right.
yeah, absolutely. And you kind of hinted at the kind of subjectivity of impact in that answer as well. And I think that's also one of the things that a lot of researchers get quite challenged by is actually I'm part of this system as well. So what I value matters as well as what others matter. If I'm being equitable, it's not dialing me out of that conversation, but making sure I'm appropriately represented, and so is everyone else.
Exactly. I mean, this is the principles in the book are things like about own your expertise but don't be a jerk, because too many people believe that. A nice prompt there, Jed. I saw the tick, but it's true because people. It's a really tricky balance for people to know how much of an expert to be, because academics have incredible expertise, as do research managers, professional services, etc. But how do you dial that in a fair way, rather than in a kind of parental way, like you
Mm,
must? And people really, really struggle with that. And I see imposter syndrome far more than I see the opposite. No
yeah.
question. And if it just remains difficult for people, and you said it chimed with you. It's because it chimes with all of us.
Hmm.
Any of us working in this space, not looking in, but working in this space, I think would have exactly the same answers. I don't think we'd have, particularly different answers because it's the same pressures we see brought to bear on people.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so I'm a firm believer in the power of questions and that kind of hive mind kind of analogy, because I think the best answers to those questions come from many minds, not just one. So in terms of over the years, when your time in working in impact, who's been the one that's asked you the best questions? Maybe thinking about the this is kind of leading into our final question in terms of who's your research impact heroes, but kind of who's really prodded with the kind of like, here's a thing we need to unpick. I haven't got the answer, but I have got the question.
It's, I don't think it's a single person. That I, the kind of my points of contact are quite varied, and they're almost always just, links made and kept. So people whose values I share. I mean, that's the key thing. I mean, that's for most of us. And you said the community of practice is a rich, generous community. It is incredible. So there are swathes of questions in there that will have prompted it. But I think the two places where the richest questions have come from. One is outside of impact, so kind of the responsible assessment space.
Mm.
So asking questions there, and it's not because they're asking questions that we haven't thought of, but they're asking them to a world that's listening far more about responsible. And so that's amplified that question. But I think the questions to me, which have been the most, step back and think, have been from the patient community, have been from, those using public services, that kind of end, which is essentially, why the hell do we care what discipline has made this happen? We just want an answer. How the hell do you think I'm going to get the bus to this service? Those kind of really, really basic questions. I was doing years ago, focus groups with under 16s about emergency contraception, and there was always we believe in it, it's all fine, but I haven't got any bus money. And you kind of go, right, okay, then everything we're doing about the fidelity of the service is all to nothing. And I think the reason I'm giving that as my answer is because that is what reminds us we have got to plug in to the realities, not just the value of the thing we're doing, but the realities of using it. So it's definitely outside of academia. Wonderful questions within, but that's where my kind of, stepping back and going, whoa, comes from.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you need that view from somebody who doesn't regularly look at this. I think we do tend to be a bit insular, don't we, in academia sometimes, that we only talk to our own tribe, whether that's, a geneticist, a philosopher who, and we have subdivisions of all of those things, and we can get just embedded in that maybe 20, 30 people around the world who kind of are also members of that tribe.
I think that needs to be preserved as well. That's the other thing. I think, this is how science grows. We cannot, should not inject expectations or kind of social engagement for those arenas which are, the kind of the bit in the lab. And sorry, that's my naive understanding of anything in a lab, the bit in the lab. So I think we need to do that. It's wrapping that in processes, people, relationship buildings that allow it to go forward. I just think, impact, not everything should have impact, not everyone should be expected to do impact. That's unreasonable. But we can support that pipeline and that journey and allow those incredibly clever folk across all discipline to do their thing, just not without thinking about the people, etc. Bring them in as early as possible to the journey.
Brilliant. Now, I mentioned your job title at Northeastern, so that's got the word culture in it. So let's actually pick that apart, if I may. So, what areas of that enormous topic are you currently focusing on, and what actions are you trying to put in place to change those areas? And who else is involved at Northeastern?
So I'll start with asking you the question, Jed. Do you know anything about Northeastern University London?
Well, I do know it is would it be right to call it a satellite campus of an American university?
It is well, it's two things. It's kind of got a dual identity. Well done on the homework. Excellent. So yeah, it is. So there's Northeastern in Boston, which is, let's call that the parent. And that has a network of institutions, San Francisco, etc. And Northeastern University London is one of those. It's essentially the European campus for that university. And so, students doing a degree through Northeastern can do it across all of these sites. So we have a lot of American students for a year, then they go back and we get another cohort, etc. So it has that, but it is also a UK university in its own right. It has this dual identity. So, we operate certainly in research, primarily as a UK institution, European funding, etc., etc. But we're new. I think we're the second newest UK university. We're livid there was someone else recently because we were like, oh, no. But we are, we're relatively new in the research space. I should say, Northeastern London, it evolved from was the new College of the Humanities, which was established in 2011, 2012, which was, by the title suggests, a humanities college, and through various things that happened before I was there, essentially turned into Northeastern London, which has much more, it's a lot of humanities, but also computer science, AI, politics, psychology, all of those things. The reason that's important is because we're going into our first ref. So the institution is a satellite from a much bigger, more established one. There's staff, there's research going on, all of those things, but we are new as a kind of institution and newly going into ref. So when you talk about culture, we're starting at a much earlier point than other people. There's a lot of activity going on, say brilliant research, all of that, but we're having to write a code of practice. We're having to work out what our processes are for internal funding, etc. I mean, they're there, but the kind of formalization of them is there. So when we're talking about culture, we are talking building that research memory, building that kind of as many other places will have a kind of structure that kind of repeats year on year with training, with development, with mentorship, all of those things we have, but kind of consolidating them into something is where we are with culture. So that by necessity involves, anyone involved in research. We have a very small research office, which I'm kind of partly in. My role splits in various ways, but my research part is with them. My impact part is with them. So we are just working together in a quite, let's say, agile, if we're going to be businessy about it, to just build all of that and set those things up. So it's, how nice is it to get into something quite early in its development rather than, should we say, unpick the baggage of elsewhere?
Yeah, because I guess we all went through ref for the first time, the existing universities in 2014. But as you say, there's a whole maybe hundreds of years of kind of calcification of culture that might have happened that potentially needed to be unpicked to do well in ref if that's a kind of important thing to come out with. But yeah, really interesting to be at the start. Are there any kind of memories from your time back at Coventry that kind of like, we really mustn't do that, or we really must do that?
I think across all of those roles and all the kind of work across the sector, the thing I want to avoid, I know Northeastern wants to avoid, because it is so genuinely keen on social benefit and student benefit and all those things, is that this becomes an act of compliance. That it kind of loses its social responsibility value and tips into because we have to for ref. And I think we've all seen that in institutions, and understandably to a large extent, because ref is such a big, 2 billion quid engine. So I think that's the biggest thing we're seeking to avoid, that it's compliance only. And I suppose the sub part of that is, one of the casualties over the years for impact through ref has been the shiny stars of impact. So that we get these star players, we get the ones who did, and the other people are made invisible, other people who aren't doing it, they don't count, all of that. The challenge we have is we're small. The benefit we have is we're small. So I think we want to celebrate, recognize all of those things across everyone, and avoid the sense of impact for everyone, not you, which I've seen elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, be really love to maybe dive into that in a bit more detail. Maybe after submission day, you can kind of go do, maybe a reflective piece in terms of what did we get right, what did we not?
Yeah, I think I'm always mildly cautious of the kind of immediate um, post-mortem.
Yes.
Because I think last time I remember the results came out and a colleague at another university, which I will not name, messaged me the day after to say our VC has already called us in and told us we need to have our draft case studies ready by the end of the week for the next ref, like what we're putting in. And then he red penned them. Um, and it's not quite as harsh as that elsewhere, but yeah, that's a kind of wow moment.
Mm,
Um, um, but yeah, it's not as harsh as that everywhere. But I think the post-mortem can be overly simplistic. And
mm,
I think, ref, weirdly, ref has been a really helpful framework for us
mm,
because it's certainly not a blank canvas, but just for want of a better analogy, um, ref does give some degree of structure to the kind of things you want in your environment and so on. So it will be interesting to see. I hope that any university doing a post-mortem on this really takes account of all the variables, not just the scores, like loss of staff and all of those kind of things. And maybe I won't say any more on that point.
Excellent. Um, Now we're coming to kind of the end of it. I actually might try and spread this out a bit more, so I get a bit more joy this morning on this beautiful Friday morning in
It
July
is
in the
warm, isn't
UK.
it?
It is. But I've started to ask all my guests to answer this question, and it's really to kind of generate the long list, not in a ref sense, because hopefully they will all eventually be interviewed as part of this series. But who are your research impact heroes and why? And you can give me up to three people, but I'm going to remove David Phipps from that list.
Well, I'm going to
And
have to negotiate with you now then, because I want to give you a longer list that bring you round to one person.
oh, okay.
So I will honour your
Right.
request for a small number, but I want to, for reasons will become clear, take a bit of a tour of a few other names, if
Yeah,
that's okay.
that would be fine. Yes, that would be fine. So is David in the long?
What David said, so obviously David Phipps is long-term collaborator of mine, Research Impact Canada, just phenomenal, the most generous, decent person you will ever meet. He is just, I love him dearly. He is wonderful. Of course, he's on the list, but by your request, I'm not allowed to have David because it would have been the obvious answer.
And we're not putting the bingo thing. What do you usually call him?
Well, no, yeah, I think I may have recalled in my Impact Husband.
There we
Um,
go, tick.
which is it's entirely possible. And just in case, because I haven't said them, I will just mention Jessica Fletcher, unicorns, and what else do you want? Strip clubs. There you go. On
Yeah.
sausages. There you go. You can tick all of those off. Do you know, just as a thing on the medieval conference? So I translated slash AI translated my impact principles into medieval. I don't know what the right word is. And
Hmm.
obviously Jessica Fletcher became CAD That's not a surprise. Um, and Do Not Be a Jerk turned into, well, this might be mildly insulting, but it turned into Alan Rickman's Sheriff of Nottingham from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, because it was the only cultural reference I had.
Okay. Okay.
So
So
apologies
so
for
don't
that.
be Alan Rickman.
It was Don't Be
Well,
a
don't be the
Churl,
sheriff.
I believe. But there was also unicorns on there as well. But yeah, the um, we couldn't find a medieval translation for impact case studies show the sausage, not the sausage factory. So if anyone's listening and can find a medieval translation of that, I would absolutely welcome it, just as an aside. Um, yeah, so no, Dave and I just we work very closely because we just genuinely believe in the same things, which is what can we do?
Yeah.
That's it's as simple as that. So I will take him off the list, but only for that reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, David is beyond you is the person who always makes me laugh the most when he's talking about impact.
He's
You
a
know,
joy.
I remember the first time I watched his interview from Tamika Hayden on one of the really early research impact summits that she runs 10th anniversary this year. Wow.
Yes.
So I think it probably was in the first one where she asked him what's impact, and he went, I don't really want to go into that definitional dystopia.
That sounds about right. And Tamika's got this conference, bit of a shout out for her Impact, her Ignite conference in Southampton
Yes,
later in the year in November.
I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that should be what will be undoubtedly very, very good.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I think there's a lot of us in this space, just all of us, not just me, David. So many of us just see how ridiculous a lot of the kind of daily operations feel like. So a bit of nonsense is usually the way through that. Which is probably why I have so many kind of sausage and strip club related slides. But yeah, so I just need to seek your consent here then, Jed. Am I allowed to give you my longer list and my reasonings?
Let's do it in that. If we can do it in a kind of speed
Oh
shooting
no,
way,
I've
that'd be
clustered. Don't worry,
lovely.
I've
Yeah.
I've thought ahead here. I have
Oh,
because I realised it was cheeky, but you'll see why. So
gold
the reason
star.
I'm doing this is because thank you very much.
You can have an
Um,
impact unicorn.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Also, I issued gold stars at a ref meeting recently, and that was probably my most professional at the moment, but we enjoyed it. So the reason I've not struggled to think, but there are so many remarkable people in this arena, and what I wanted to do is a shout out to the kinds of people. So I've got people's names, but that's actually why they are remarkable and what they bring to this arena. And the thing that characterizes them most is that they change the space for others. They're not just about big impact. They're not just about kind of shiny, unicorns, all of that. They are about how did they use the platform they have to make a difference for those coming next or those who need it now. And that I realized when I kind of scribbled down a list, that is what characterizes this whole suite of people. So, for example, we'll look at the patient work, and this will also probably be Impact Bingo because I will always talk about Derek Stewart, who is a
Mm.
throat cancer survivor. He is the most wonderful, glorious, kind man you will ever meet, but he has used his experience of being a patient to bring to bear improvements for patient engagement, and just wonderful, wonderful man. If you look at culture and impact, loads of people, but Professor Ellie Belfiore, who's now at Coventry, work on impact and culture and really trying to shift away from this simplistic view of how impact works and building culture, and goes around and talks about it. And we had her at NU London and so on. You've got things around responsible KE, and this is obviously a big ticket now,
Mm.
the responsible use. And then, the work there, Professor Alice Wonsher and Aileen Marshall-Brown at Oxford, long-standing piece of work that it was presented at ARMA on the characteristics of responsible KE and how we should do that. Let's just do it. Definitely have to give a shout out to Emerald because publishers are stepping into this space. I've probably gone on record quite a lot about my views on some of that.
Mm.
There is a bit in my book about me taking quite a lot of conference merchandise from a certain organization I won't mention because they were adamant impact was citations, and I wouldn't agree with them and they wouldn't agree with me. So I just took a really cool notebook, not gonna lie. Um, but Vicky Williams, head, the kind of CEO of Emerald, the global company, the amount of work she particularly has put in to do gender balancing in the company, to do impact, all of that, just opening that platform, children's literacy reading groups. Internationally, Esther de Smet, Annabel Sanchez at CREAF in Barcelona, Giovanna Lima, all speak to try to build this internationally. And I know if not
Mm.
all of those Jeds, several of them, just drive a driving force internationally. And what a pleasure to be with. And there's probably just two others before I give you the final name I'm going to give you. One of them is a name you possibly don't know actually, which is Dr. Kellen Lee. She is in dementia work. So she is a researcher, PhD, etc., and did work on what's called material citizenship. And this is the idea that dementia patients essentially need their materials, their objects. So imagine a
Mm.
dementia patient going into a home and being stripped of all of their belongings, the sense of loss, despair, disorientation. So she goes around doing training on things. She set up a dementia care hub. And the reason I mention her is she stepped out of academia because she was so committed to that benefit
Mm.
that she set up another way to do it. And then I can't talk anything about heroes without talking about Lizzie Gadd and the just ongoing drive towards responsible assessment. So it is a long suite of names, and I've got one last one to give you. The reason I do that is because we don't sit in a vacuum in impact.
Mm.
We sit with this whole suite of specialisms, commitments, passions, nerdiness, all of that. And that's my short list. for
Mm.
the kinds of people I work with. But the one I'm going to direct you to, and this probably isn't a surprise, is Professor Gemma Derrick. And the reason I'm going to point you to her, so Gemma is, I think, innovating this space particularly at the moment. So she is the kind of the power behind Grimpact, when
Mm.
impact goes bad, and also part of the group driving Hidden Ref, and also its kind of offshoot projects. And she's done that Evaluator's Eye, looking at ref impact assessment, there's a whole suite of things. And she's just trying to get under the bonnet of a lot of stuff. And that's my name I'm going to give you, but I
Yeah,
want it to be within that bigger suite of things.
fantastic.
Did I
Well,
get away with it, Jed?
you got away with it. That was a really interesting list, and lots of names actually I didn't know. So that's really expanded my view of the world as well. Your Gemma's, I've been lucky to have Gemma on the podcast twice. So
Fabulous.
she's talked about both those things. You know, there's an
Yeah.
episode about Grimpact, and there's also an episode about Hidden Ref. Um, and a plug for their new podcast, which what the
Yeah.
ref. If you are, if you are UK based, or if you are really interested in research assessment, even if you're elsewhere,
I'm
have
trying
a
to think
listen into that.
one of the things that struck me as I was saying that list, one of the things that characterized them, and if there was ever a kind of, I know this is not what advice would you give, but if I was ever going to
Mm,
advise people, is find the people you feel safe talking to about
mm,
not just I have a stupid question, but like, I have this draft of something I can't get my head around. Can you have a look at it? I am, my supervisor is being a nightmare. Can I speak to you? That list is full of people who make me feel safe, and I don't
mm.
feel I'm not risk. I don't feel particularly risky. But do you know what I mean? There's such a kindness is potent. Those people do that for me, and if others are able to find their community that does that, that allows them to fall and pick them up, they've won.
Yeah,
They have won everything.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you reminded me. I've just been a guest on the podcast talking about the people who picked me up when I had a recent failure in my career, and just the amazing people who put me back together and made me the Jed that I felt comfortable with again.
But isn't
So,
that the most important
mm,
thing? I mean, with all of this, it's all the impact stuff and the ref and all of that. Yeah, it's the day job. It's what we need to do. It has importance. But at the end of the day, you need to know that you have someone who's got your back.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Just before we stop talking about Gemma, with you both having that kind of you both mention a failed musical career. Maybe, maybe as there's a I don't know, an Impact Unicorns band that could be hived off, or
Well, so David Phipps is also a flautist.
yes,
Um,
absolutely.
there's a number of people in this space are musicians, but I'm one of those people, when they say at a conference, oh, there'll be a choir or there'll be some kind of other enforced fun. I'm going, no, thank you. And it's not because it's not good, it's just not for me. I just think I get very Britishly awkward about enforced fun. That's the
Well,
only way I can describe it.
well, I'll tell you what, we've constantly been challenged about why. So our intro and outro on these episodes is done by a mate of mine called Piero Vitelli, who is also in a research and development space, but as a freelancer, and I've known him for years. And our co-host Tony Bromley played the guitar that so Tony actually wrote a song, and it's the podcast song, also available on the
Nice.
podcast. If if you want a light episode, um, and maybe you and Gemma could do the voiceover, and with your
I
double
mean,
bass.
there's just I
Could we
can't
get
tell
that?
you how little chance there is of that, Jed. I mean, just
Okay.
even hearing it is making like I'm coming up in hives. It's just like there are actual professionals who do that and quite rightly should do that.
I,
I mean, I could probably play you the bass line of Oklahoma still, but but beyond that, I don't know. It's a joy to have as a hobby. I realized it was not supposed to be my career when I ditched it. Um, I love that people are creative in this space.
Mm,
it's just not me. We had, just as a quick example of that, we had a thing at previous university, I won't tell you which one, but a while ago, they had an away day, and halfway through they went, right, we're going to go and take photos, go around the hotel complex, take photos that, really pointed in the direction of what we could have as our research future. We're really creative. I don't do well in those things. My photos were a bin, a no entry sign, and then a cloud because I'd accidentally let my phone camera go off. And then I had to find a reason why these were, like we could bin old ideas, but it's like some people are incredible at that. My God,
Yeah.
thank you for those of you who are. I will quietly craft at home. I'll quietly do my little cross stitching at home. Happy days. But please don't ask me to do anything more creative unless it's showing pictures of unicorns and so on. That I'm
Yeah.
fine with.
Yeah. I'm totally with you on that one. I mean, even though I'm part of I guess part of the community that asks people to do those creative things in away days and stuff like that. If I was writing it, I would probably never, because I know I hate those moments and kind of go, oh, I've just got to wander around for 20 minutes and take a photograph of something.
But also, I mean, people won't believe it, but I'm a card-carrying introvert. I need to be away from all that. The idea of suddenly being kind of center of attention doing some kind of crafting or singing is my idea of actual hell. So I mean, thank you, Jed. Great idea. Lovely.
We have so much in common. I'm actually an introvert, and you kind of think, why are you doing a podcast as a host, you fool?
We all do what we need to. I think we just have our thresholds and let the people who are good at it do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Julie, it's been a huge amount of fun. I think most people will have shouted house on the Bayley Impact Bingo now. I kind of had to force it, so,
I'm just not a one-trick pony, Jed. I
You're
mean, I know I
not.
come across that way, but it's in print. I don't need to just keep saying it. But hey, they seem useful ideas for people, and that'll do me.
And I'll put that joke about the bingo away for a while.
It's fine. I'm very comfortable in my repeated messages. Don't worry.
Well, I think that way of talking about impact makes it so accessible, and actually, no matter how many times I hear you use those metaphors, it's always thought-provoking for me, because it always drives me down to another level to think about it. So I think it is worth repeating those messages, not just to those who haven't heard them before.
I would say for the one person in the room that hasn't, if it lands with them, I've done my job.
Yeah.
To be honest, that's how it works. But no, it's been lovely to speak to you, Jed. Lovely to have. I mean, we chat anyway, but this is it's been fun. Thank you.
You're welcome. So thank you for agreeing to be on the podcast, and I'll leave you to say goodbye to all the listeners.
Well, I will say goodbye. I will say thank you, Jed, and a continued thanks to anyone who's working in that space to make a difference. It's often invisible, but my God, it's important. So just carry on.
Thanks for listening to the Research Culture Uncovered podcast. Please subscribe so you never miss out on our brand new episodes. And if you're enjoying the discussions, give us some love by dropping a 5-star rating and written review, as it helps other research culturists find us. And please share with a friend and show them how to subscribe. Thanks for listening, and here's to you and your research culture.